Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'd like to introduce the panel members this afternoon, as well as the secretary and the assessor. Panel members today joining us via Zoom: Brian Carlin and Valerie Verhun. Mr. Jeremy Cole is representing the assessment department this afternoon, and our administrative personnel is Zachary Mohan. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you'll be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing is concluded, you can leave the meeting. We'll be hearing an application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which a revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at the hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to a set value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. You will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 9 on our docket today. Mr. Mohan, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Of course, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan Cole.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and we should move on to item 1, which is 1900 Main Street. I understand, Mr. Cole, that there is an issue with non-compliance.
Yes, there is.
All right, so why don't we go through the initial information for the appeal, and then run us through the non-compliance information that you have available for us this afternoon. And then we will decide what we're going to do. Thank you.
Okay, so clearly stated on my first page, we're seeking 53.3B and 54.3.2. If you turn to page 2.
Sorry, Mr. Assessor, could you read it into the roll beforehand?
Yeah, please, the application number and the roll number, please.
Bear with me, all right.
Yeah.
I have to log into my phone today because it wasn't linking up. Okay, all right, sorry, my mistake. Roll number is 11-03-0441-200, 1900 Main Street. The roll number, or sorry, the 2025 value is 6,082,000. I can get to the metrics of it as we
Yeah.
go, but I'll touch on the
And the file
non-compliant.
number is 24, 27, 26.
Correct.
Thank you. Just want to make sure we have it written in.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we turn to page 2, as you can see, for 2021 and 2022, we received no response. For the year in question, if you look on page 2, highlighted, I should say, to the top top right-hand side, April 11th, 2024, we sent out income and expense questionnaire. On the next page, page 3, it was returned to sender. So we did follow it up again on page 4. We send out certified mail. June 9th, same income expense questionnaire sent out on page 5. It was again returned to sender, date stamped June 12th. And then you see on the next page, on page 6, no such address is the reason why it returned. And on page 7 as well, date stamped. So with that, we sent it to where they held out, where they wanted to send it to, and we received no response. So at that point, it is not compliant. They are not compliant. And we're asking for the penalty applied if there's going to be a reduction.
Okay. Just a quick question, Mr. Paul, if you could humor me. Has there been any change of ownership on this property?
I don't believe in the time, but in the time frame that we sent it, no. There was a sale in 2013. I'll go to that, but I'll reference that as we go through the brief. But yeah.
Okay, Mr. Navarro, comment as to why your client has not provided information, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, we're still seeking advice from the client on why that happened. We haven't received it at this point. The only question that I would have for the assessor is in terms of the mailings that you've indicated in your evidence here, which one is for the new address? What page?
We both sent it to the same, like as far as the new address, I'm the address is for what it's stated on page 2, 200, 15,505 Yellowhead Trail, Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay, and it was returned as no such address?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
At this point, we just don't have the relevant facts, Mr. Chair. So,
and I appreciate that from you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We will go in camera and decide what we're going to do with respect to this request. So if you could be patient with us, gentlemen, we will be right back to you as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. And we have deliberated on the issue of non-cooperation that the city is requesting, and we are granting non-co-op on this particular property with the information that's provided. So, Mr. Navarro, I'm going to come to you for your presentation at this time, please.
Mr. Chair, as I noted before, we are still waiting for a response from the owner. We didn't have the relevant facts pertaining to this, so from our position, we have no option but to ask for confirmation at this point.
Okay. I find it rather odd with a major business like that that isn't responding to information that they've given in the past. So please take that up with your client, and I look forward to having this matter taken care of properly. Thank you, Mr. Navarro. All right, so that being the case, ask for confirmation at this point. We will move on to the next item on the docket. So that being 1486 Regent Avenue West. And Mr. Poole, I believe you have a submission that you'd like to bring to us, so please, at this point.
Sure. File number is 242164. Roll number is 0901047421. It's for 1486 Regent Avenue West. The 2025 assessment is for $12,210,000. The property was built in 2019 and in 2014. If you turn to, there's approximately 57,000 square feet of leasable area. If you turn over to page 3, gives a better idea of the property. The two dealerships over here were on separate roll numbers. They merged the roll number. So we now have a newer dealership on the left-hand side, which was built in 2019, and the dealership on the right-hand side was built in 2014. So our effective year for both is approximately 2018, but given what I just said, those are two relatively new buildings, obviously. It's on Regent, just after kind of turns. If you know where the Costco is, it's kind of adjacent to there. On page 2 is their income and expense questionnaire. They do indicate that they're owner occupied. Pictures are as follows on page 4. Jim Pattison, Toyota is the newer building, the larger building. And as you go through the photos for the board's leisure, it is a full service dealership. If you look on page 13, it's the Subaru dealership, the smaller of the two. Again, full service dealership. And obviously, same ownership group. So they are owner occupied. So at that point, we don't have, maybe I'll get into this now to make the hearing easier. We have car dealerships, it's a car dealership docket. I think we should make the arguments for one appeal, this appeal now, and have the arguments carry over for the other remainder, for both appellant and agent. I think that would save the board time rather than repeating the same argument again and again. With that, if we're all in agreement on that.
Would agree, by the way, Mr. Cole.
Okay.
If we can streamline the argument, we don't need to have it given to us 7 or 8 times in a row, so.
Exactly. So I'll go through it a little bit here, and I appreciate we have an educated panel here today. I'll go through it. If there's any questions you have, I'll be happy to answer, but I'm going to streamline the argument down.
Okay.
So as we go through the car dealership portfolio properties, they are all owner occupied. They don't exist in renting purposes. There was a couple that did rent. The one particular one here was, there was an older one on site on one of the roll numbers that was torn down. It was a purchase agreement to get into the market. That's typically what you would find, or maybe a holdover rent a couple times throughout the 15 or so years that I've been looking at it, and as far back as I've looked at it. It always works out to be a book rent if there's anything reported. It's totality 100% owner occupied. So at that point, how do you apply an income and expense or an income approach when you don't have income, you don't have other than owner occupied expenses being reported? I'll touch on the argument now, which we're using. It's municipal board order A0223, and that starts on page 24. And I'm not going to go through the entire order. It's there for you if you'd like to read it. But I'm going to concentrate on page 11 of the order, or page 34 of the brief. This argument's come up before. Significantly dated order. There's 2 general orders that we see coming out of the municipal board. One is for Unit 90 at Point West Auto Park, or now Birchwood Automotive Group. And this order, they are significantly old. There has been nothing towards the board, the municipal board, since then. So what we have is a number of appeals being held in abeyance, waiting on a collection of test cases, one that'll be heard in June. And if there need to be an additional 2 heard, depending on the type of property it is, either standalone condominium or a more industrial periphery flavor type property, we'll do those test cases. So from that, we're relying on this order here because this, in my opinion, has already been, the questions of how to value it has already been raised and answered. And it's highlighted on page 34. Basically, what they're looking at, highlighted in the first red box, is the board satisfied that the appropriate method to value car dealerships, in this case, the subject property was a car dealership, is the income approach. There was an argument made that cost approach should be applied to special utility properties. Board basically stepped away from that. So at a board revision level now, even though it's significantly dated, I don't feel to put a cost approach on would be appropriate. I still think we should go with the income approach. And then highlighted in yellow behind that, or below that, I should say, is how do you value it? How do you, or where do you grab the rents from? Where do you take a capitalization rate from? How do you value it? So they're looking at the board, and I'll read it in full in the box. The board accepts that the argument for auto malls and the agglomeration of auto ship dealerships located in different sectors of the city result in an auto mall having characteristics similar to regional retail with national rather than local tenants. The board is satisfied that the subject is similar, although not identical, to large national and international retail properties located in or near regional shopping facilities. So what they're saying is, for risk for capitalization rate, what they're saying is this is where we were looking to. It's basically comparing the best orange to the apple, so to speak, because you don't have an apple to compare an apple to in this case. So what you got to grasp from this is in or near, meaning it doesn't have to be in a mall, it could be near a mall, and that they're looking for large national or international tenancies. They're not looking for small time business. They're looking for large, those larger, more covenant for tenancies. So when we go out into the marketplace and we look how we're going to value this, I looked at it as a big box approach. We see in years past when I brought in about 25 or so comparables, I went citywide. In this cycle, I've broken that out for, again, a larger citywide look, but also for the different sectors of the cities where car dealerships are located on, so we can get a good understanding on where specifically they fall in place within the city. So from that, the argument is really, if these tenancy or these owner occupiers were going to go out into the marketplace, where would they be able to be located, where they would be able to get retail aspect? They're selling vehicles and servicing them, obviously, but the reason why they're there is because they're selling them. Where would they be able to go out into the marketplace and rent, and what would they need to pay? Given the subject properties are all slab on grade construction, masonry or steel walls, steel roof, they have a showroom component, a large, usually showroom component, better suited, better finished, and then of course the vehicle service areas, storage areas that you would need to do your work for warranty, for servicing, so to speak, on site. Where would you be able to go and find a similar property? And the argument in my mind's eye is obviously what they've indicated in this municipal board order, but you should be looking at big box stores, as they are in a similar retail node and similar retail environment. They have enough on-site parking for customers to park and visit the store. In this case here, for car dealerships, you would need to store cars on site and have customers come in, similar in nature. And for your big box stores, they're pretty basic building. They are slab on grade. They do have some mezzanine space. They do have some office space and storage space in the back, usually with a loading dock or so, with minimal storage. But basically, the entire building is a slab on grade steel roof, masonry walls, sometimes masonry or sometimes steel walls. And it's a big, large open space for your retail goods to go in and your clients to your retail customers to walk through. So the build out for these are less than the subject property would be. So you should be able to make the argument that if they were to go into the marketplace, the tendencies that are in these properties for big box stores, the subject property owner would have to at least pay. And I say at least pay because if they were to get a site developed specifically for the current physical makeup of the subject property, the build out would be greater. So your rate of return that you would need from a property owner would have to be more. Essentially, they'd have to pay a bit more in rent to get the property the way as it sits. Of course, we don't have that because they're all owner occupied, and the closest apple to the closest orange to this apple is the big box store, which would be a little bit less of a build out. So from that, I can go to my rent comparables, which start on page 17 and extend to page 20. I have 80 comparables that we went through for different areas of the city for where car dealerships are located. So if you turn down to my page 20, for the 80 car dealership, or for the 80 big box stores that we looked at, the total leasable area is approximately 1.9 million, just a bit under 1.9 million. The median CRU size is 20,000, a little over 20,000, and the total average rent is $18.78. The weighted average is $18.40, and the total median is $18.25. So that's a good statistical analysis. You do see a very tight range there. But again, that's for the citywide. You're obviously going to have a greater rent in Kenniston Commons than you would say to the Garden City, McPhillips area. So when we look at comps number 61 through 672, which is where this would be the closest to the subject property. Sorry, my mistake, wrong one. I was looking at the earlier one. Bear with me here 1 second. Look at comps 27 to 41. We see that for roughly 350,000 square feet of leasable area, we have $19.66, $19.27, and a median of $18.25. So still very tight, tiny bit greater than the average. So from that block of properties from comps 27 to 41, you can get a good indication of what they're going to pay if they went into the marketplace. They'd be looking at around a $19 rent. So when we go to the workup on page 21.
So, sorry, Mr. Bull, if I could just interrupt you for just a moment. You were just pointing us at comps down Pembina and Grant.
Yes.
Were you needing to point to the comps that you have from 1 to 13, sir? Because this is, the subject is on region. Is it not?
I apologize. I'm
I just wanna clarify so that you don't think about it after the fact and go, yeah, I pointed at something else, but, and I appreciate you're using this argument for all of them, so we can look at the individual areas compared to the subjects as they come along.
Yeah, precisely. And I apologize to the panel. I'm getting going on 1 o'clock. I apologize. I missed that. Yeah, I meant 1 through 13 and precisely. I'll expand a bit on this. The comps that you see here is basically the look at the municipal board level board that I'm going to be preparing for June. These are essentially going to be the same comparables that I'll be producing. I may change a few. I look citywide. I look for everything that was at market and I brought it all in. So from that aspect, I did put in a full marketplace for you to review. If you want to review the totality of it, if you want to do individually the localized area that the subject property is in, it's specifically geared for that. So, and again, I apologize for misspeaking, but yeah, comps 1 through 13 areas. Again, I'll go over the numerics of it. 331,000 square feet approximately, average CRU size or median CRU size of 24,000 square feet approximately. Average rent is $17.85, weighted average is $18.11, and median is $17.50. So again, nice tight average, as you would expect. So if I can go to the workup, which is on page 21. For the two dealerships, for 44,865 square feet, which is the larger dealership, the newer dealership, we have $13.25. For the smaller dealership, being a lesser amount of area, roughly 4 times less at 12,220 square feet, we have $15.01. So if we take that, produces a PGI of $777,883. Our effective gross income with a 2% vacancy gets to $762,325. I did look at the 2% vacancy, and I'll address this now in the workup. There has been some argument, why aren't you using a straight realty vacancy? I have looked at that for this specific purpose of this appeal. I'm also looking at all the parameters in total, like in linear fashion. If I was to adopt a greater vacancy to be more reflective of somewhat what we see in the retail marketplace, then I would also have to adopt the rents that are in place. That significantly outweighs the reduction or possible increase in vacancy. If we're looking at around an $18 rent rather than what we have applied today, then I would also be looking at a retail rent. So from that purpose or that perspective, I felt that the model rent should be left in place as well as the 2% vacancy. So expenses are at 3%, non-recoverable, and shortfall is at $6, which produces a net operating income of $732,605. Capped at 6% gets us to our $12,210,000. So from that, I feel that's a very conservative value. I think it's appropriate for the subject property for this appeal. But again, the marketplace indicates that it should be renting at a significantly higher market rent. But specifically for the appeal here today, I feel it's appropriate to be applied by the board. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions of the assessor at this point, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pohl, based on your opinion, what do you think the model is doing in terms of the reduction on the rent, say from the comparisons that you have for the Regent Avenue area?
I really I'm not here to defend necessarily the rent parameters. I'm here to review what I would be putting on. The model obviously came in low.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at the vacancy and I'm trying to qualify this properly. I don't want anything I say here at this hearing or these hearings at the board revision level to be used somehow against me when I move to the test case. The test cases will be a full-blown review. And at that point, I don't want, you said this at this hearing. Why aren't you applying it at the municipal board? Because this hearing is specific for the 2025 and for the model parameters.
And rest assured, Mr. Pohl, that the municipal board is a de novo.
Exactly.
And I can assure you that they will not be looking at anything that's going on from the board of revision level. I know that for fact. So
I would
hope
hope
there's any problem with that part of it. Thank you.
Okay, I just for clarity for all parties. So when I'm looking at it, the vacancy seems a little low if I'm putting on a retail vacancy, but when you balance out the rent that would be going along with it, it's a benefit to the property here today at appeal. So I didn't feel the need to adjust either parameter, and that's kind of where I was going with it. Hopefully that answers your question as to why obviously our comps are what they are, but the model rents are what they are too, significantly further now.
Okay, and I believe we're both in agreement that in this instance we relied basically on retail comparisons, correct?
Yes, I feel it's the appropriate pool of comps to come from.
Okay, and that's reflected in the NOIs for both parties in this appeal. The one question I would have regarding your comparisons, would you not agree that some of the rents which are possibly in regional centers or super centers would be a affected by their location in those areas, as opposed to a standalone retail property like this one.
Not necessarily. The order itself says in or near. It doesn't say far away kind of thing. It says in or near. So that's
Yeah.
But-
I think we're probably maybe not. What I'm asking is not necessarily pertaining to the order. More so, would an owner from a regional center or super center maybe demand more rent in their mall than say a standalone location?
not necessarily. You have to look at the specific makeup of where you're located. A good example is again Regent Avenue. They're not in a condominium, but they are on a strip, which is a cluster of dealerships. If you go down Regent, there's four. You can name them; they're all there. So
Right.
when you look at it from that perspective, whether you look at it from an auto mall, what used to be Point West, which is currently Birchwood, or you look at Waverly, those properties are clustered as well. So in reality, they're creating a demand for that area. They're creating a demand for that strip, whether you're in an auto mall or you're in a strip or cluster, if you want to say. The makeup of that dictates why they're there. I feel that based on that, clearly they create their own marketplace of a localized nature. So it's very similar to what a power center would be, so to speak. They're not sporadic and throughout the city primarily in standalone locations. They're usually standalone but close to group. So I think there's a utility, economic utility derived from that, produced by that. And I think that's a fair reflection in looking at more of your, if you call it super centers or power nodes, but however you want to determine it. So.
Okay. And lastly, for the cap rate that you selected, actually, I don't think you've selected the cap rate. I believe that's a model generated cap rate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And would you know whether the model is generating that cap rate from the retail area or?
If you look on page 23, and apologize if I didn't go over it, obviously we don't produce direct comparables for capitalization rates. We're using the market survey. You look at retail, you look at Colliers, whether it be regional, power center, or strip, they're all between 6 and 7. If you look at CBRE, same idea. There's a bit of for Cushman Wakefield, there's a bit of a starting point at 6.5 and 7.5. So there's a bit of an adjustment there by 50 basis points to the positive side, I guess you would say. But we're right at 6 for the bottle.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. And questions, Ms. Moran?
No, mine were just answered, and my concern was with the cap rate also, but I feel the assessor answered that question, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
Nope, that was very clear. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume, gentlemen, as we've kind of started off the top, that is pretty much the argument that's going to be made for each of the following properties, yes?
Yes.
Mr. Navarro, there's going to be the odd one or two that comes up, I guess?
Yeah, I would believe that I think there's some differences with a few of the properties, not many,
Okay.
where there's a bit of an industrial flavor to them. So, but for the most part,
So,
yes, you're
For
correct.
the most part, we've
Yes.
basically heard the assessor's argument on this type of property today,
Correct.
more or less, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Mr. Navarro, I'd love to hear your presentation on this, sir. So if you could, please.
Okay, so we are looking at 1486 Regent Avenue West. If you turn to page 6, you can see a generalized picture of it from Google Maps, and it is sectioned into essentially 2 dealerships. You can see the signs there on page 7. One is a Subaru dealership, and the other one is a Toyota. So I don't think we need to go into great detail on this. What I'll do is I'll ask you to turn to page 14. And So we have the same size in terms of the dealerships combined. You can see that we have essentially four, I won't call them premises, but four areas, but essentially two premises. So I believe the assessor has combined the areas for these two dealerships, but essentially we're dealing with the same square footage in the end. We've come to a rent of $13.28. You can see the comparisons that we used on page 11, or sorry, page 12. And again, these are predominantly retail. I would actually, I'll correct, I believe those are exclusively retail. And in terms of the vacancy allowance, we've just gone with standard 2%. We didn't deviate from that. Shortfall, $6, 3% for non-recoverables, and $6.50 for the capitalization rate. So obviously the difference is the cap rate. There's not much of a difference in the NOI. The difference would come from our retail capitalization study, which you've probably heard one or maybe a few times this cycle. You can see the chart on page 13. So we're agreeing that this is essentially a property retail in nature, and for the most part, the parameters that we're using are retail, the rent. We're siding with the assessor on the vacancy, non-recoverables, and shortfall. The difference really comes down to a cap rate argument in my mind. The retail top quality class that we had, according to our study, ranges between 6.50 and 7%. And we've assigned it the best cap rate that we have in our study and according to our chart. So that is how we've valued this property. In the end, our value is $10,979,691 or $10,980,000 rounded. Beyond that, we just have the basic income and expenses that are provided. And I am open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Questions for him at this point, Mr. Bull?
No, I think he reviewed the workup pretty much bang on. The rents that we have applied for model is almost what they have for their comparables, although my market says greater for the retail. We're not asking for that, but as far as the only difference that I can see is in the cap rate. Did you have any direct sale comparables or cap rate comparables in your brief? Or capitalization rate study?
Actually, I'm wondering whether the capitalization rate study was actually included in this submission.
Yeah.
Yeah. If not, no, then it would be based completely on the assumptions made in the chart below. That is the crux of the cap rate study from the retail area. I don't believe that there would have been anything like a car dealership in the cap rate study done on retail. But how that said, for the most part, I think we have always stuck with our retail top quality starting at 650 rather than 6% as the city has and some of the other brokerage firms have. So
that's the only questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlin. Questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Verhun, do you have any questions at this point?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe I really have any further questions. You've touched on the issues. I'm happy to see that the two positions aren't extremely diverse. That's a good sign, and maybe a sign for the future that things can come together in due course, I suppose. All right. Any final summation on either party at this point, gentlemen?
I don't think it's necessary, no.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any final comment?
I am good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at that point, we will move on. to item number 3.
Okay, file number is 242733. Address is, sorry, roll number is 090075054000. Civic address is 823 Regent. The 2025 assessment is for $4,236,000. Built in 1996 with an addition put on in 2004. We have a leasable area of 24,546 square feet. If you look over on page 2 is our income expense questionnaire. We see that it is owner occupied. I won't really touch the income expense questionnaires because they are all book rents. If there's any rents on there, they're an internal rent like it's indicating here. I don't think we need to keep going on to save time. If there was a rent here, I'd be highlighting it, but there simply isn't. So I'll use that blanket coverage for the whole docket today. On page 3 shows the property. It is to the left. On page 4 shows that it's an Autolist dealership. This is one of the few that isn't a full service dealership. It is a former full service dealership, I believe. Now it's a used car dealership. So you're not going to see, your major brands in here. It is a used car dealership. So same comparisons that we've used, that we've already gone over, comparables 1 through 13. Again, we have a average rent of $17.85, weighted average of $18.11, and a median of $17.50. So that's what the market would be on a retail basis going forward. Our workup is on page 9. We see that we have this even less than the former one we just spoke to, given that, that it is not a full service dealership. And we have them in at $11.29, which produces a PGI of $277,124. Same vacancy at 2% gives us our effective gross income of $271,582. Expenses are at 3% unrecoverable. Shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of $260,489. Capped at 6.15% gives us back to the $4,236,000 rounded. Everything being the same argument for the municipal ward comparables, and the same argument for cap. I feel the $4,236,000 is reasonable. Without them, open questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pohl. And Mr. Navarro, questions?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions. I believe, sorry, maybe I should, everything is model generated, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much. Ms. Verhun, do you have any questions at this point?
None, thank you.
And Mr. Carlin, questions?
Nope, no questions. Thank you.
And I only have one question, Mr. Pohl, and I'm assuming, and you can verify if my thoughts are in the same vein as what the department's looking at. The cap rate at 6.15. That additional 0.15% is due to your feeling because of the fact this is not a branded dealership and not full service. Would that be a fair statement to make, sir?
And it also works on size as well. We're looking at the other property that was almost double. If you look at the total, more than double.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So in theory, it is, you have a very small property, you have more competitiveness for that property, meaning you'd have more people try to purchase it, that sell rate would go higher, and the reflection cap rate would be lower. If you have a larger property, there'd be less players in the marketplace that could, so there'd be less demand. In theory, it would achieve a lesser selling price, and of course the cap rate would be increasing at that point. So there's a number of factors that go into it. Obviously, new age, location, but size is a major factor.
Fair enough. Those are my questions, sir. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Navarro, can we hear from you on this particular property, sir?
Absolutely. So we're looking at 823 Regent Avenue West. And As Mr. Pohl pointed out, this is not a full service dealership. It may have been a full service dealership at one point, but it's not anymore. I've been in this location myself a few years ago. I believe based on the 2020 appeal for this property. So how I would characterize this property is that it's a dealership from days gone by. It's not built to today's standards, and physically it looks much different than your dealerships that you see today. So that is being reflected first of all in the rent, but there is also an adjustment in the capitalization rate. That said, we're not far apart at all in terms of the rent on this property. So we are taking from similar types of market comparisons. We've made an adjustment, obviously. I believe we're just slightly higher than the assessor, and really, when it comes to the net operating income, we're not too concerned about it. I think the model, and if the assessor supported that type of value, we certainly wouldn't object to it. So right from the beginning, I'll ask the panel to turn to page 14. And we have 24,546 square feet at $11.50. Potential rent of $281,244. 2% vacancy, giving us an effective market income of $275,619. We've applied a $6 shortfall, 1% for non-recoverables and 2% for other. 11,203, that's the total allowance. And we have a net operating income of 264,416. We've assigned a capitalization rate of 7% to this property. That is $3,777,369. That would be rounded to $3,777,000. Beyond that, we have, I believe, just some basic information of the property. We didn't include the INE in this property. What I would say on the cap rate is, again, if we flip back to the chart on page 13, our retail top quality ranges between 650 and 7. From our perspective, when we were looking at the previous example, we had it at 650 being the top quality. Obviously, we've adjusted this one upward, and that's basically not so much the age, it's not that old of a property, but in relation to other types of car dealerships, newer, more modern car dealerships, certainly it's not the same thing. So that is the reason for adjusting the cap rate upwards. Again, we are looking for $3,777,000, and I am open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pohl, questions at this point?
Yeah, I have one. But generally, you're viewing it the same way we're viewing it on a retail market, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're good there. I'm more concerned on an operating, and just some facts for an operating going concern. To the north, there is a gateway between the subject property and the north property. I know that property is not owned by the same ownership group as the one under field today. Do you know how much they pay for rent to store their vehicles on that lot?
I don't. I'm sorry. No.
All right, that's the only question I have. Thank you.
Mr. Pohl, you're referring to the picture on page 6, are you, sir?
6 or my page 3. There is a lot to the north. It's been in use as far back as I've looked.
Okay.
It is not something we would send an income expense questionnaire to. It's not the same owner. It's not the same owner. They're clearly occupying it. They're using it, so they must be paying rent. And my concern was just simply how much would that be?
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's a separate roll number. We would have looked at it that way. However, if we did account for it in the valuation of this property, obviously we would be making some type of adjustment to the value of the property Generally, when we do that type of adjustment, though, it's a negative adjustment on the overall value. Like essentially what we do is take the value of the property off of main holding. So we didn't consider it in this location. We treated them as two separate entities and left it at that. But no, we have no idea what rent
And
will
it,
be into them.
and in fairness, that's why I was getting with, we're both looking at it from a retail market. So
Yeah.
neither one of us would be including that in that. I'm merely trying to fact check. They're clearly using it, they're clearly occupying it, and they must be getting rent, but we don't know, that's okay. Thank you. That's the only
Yeah.
question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunt, do you have any questions at this point?
No, most of them were answered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlin.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So obviously we're very close on rents, NOIs and everything. So really, arguably, it's a cap rate discussion on this one, right?
100%.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess the argument on cap rate seems to be the most common thread between the two gentlemen. Is that correct?
For the most
I
part.
I would figure that for the most part we're agreeing in terms of the methodology, especially for these areas that are retail oriented. So yes.
Okay.
May I trouble the board to ask for a 5-minute recess? I know we're early into the hearing, but we are moving along pretty good. But
If you need a recess, we will take a 5-minute recess, sir. No problem.
thank you.
Very much. Welcome back, and we'll be moving on to item number 4 now. That being 925 Lajamortia Boulevard. So, Mr. Paul, would you like to give us your presentation?
Sure. File number is 241819. Roll number is 0605021250. The property address is 925 Lajamortia Boulevard. The 2025 assessment is for $7,468,000. It was built in 1984 with an addition put on in 1990. We have effective age of 1985. Approximately leasable area is just a little over 50,000 square feet. It is owner occupied. It's occupied by Enns Brothers. Look on page 4, shows the location of the subject property in relationship to Dugald. And then across over the overpass over the yards, stockyards would then be on the Regent location, which would be the closest marketplace for retail aspect. So on page 5 shows more of a close-up look on site. Just so we were clear on this. This is a power sports dealership. The industry term is power sports. They do sell Can-Am product line, BRP products, Evinrude, Mastercraft boats, Aluminocraft boats, Starcraft boats, Sea-Doos. So they sell side-by-sides, they sell ATVs. I have been a customer here. Retail anyways, not for inspection purposes, for an appeal, but I have walked through here numerous times. It is every bit a dealership, just a power sports dealership. So we're getting into the more industrial flavored, if you will, or periphery of what a car dealership would be, an automotive dealership would be. We're getting into power sports dealerships. So on page 6 shows when you walk through the door, you see up front, you'll see the showroom, so to speak. There'll be the desk where you have your personnel that would greet you. Along the window areas up front would also be your sales and finance. Just past the desk, as you see, would be your product. Similar to what I was indicating, slab on grade, steel construction, masonry walls. In this location here, they have a high degree of mezzanine that wraps around the building. As well, they have polished concrete floors. It's very much a showroom, so to speak, feel throughout the whole building. And as you can see, they have their products situated as well. Not only do they sell the vehicles, they sell the the retail that goes with it, your jackets, your helmets, your other product lines that goes with your power sports makeup of what you sell. So just so we're clear, most of what they sell does require an MPI registration, meaning you need to license your ATVs, you need to register your ATVs, you need to register your side-by-sides, you need to register the trailers that your boats go on top of, your CVs go on top of. You don't need to register your boats and your CVs with MPI. Obviously, they're not on the road, but what you carry them on, what they sell to carry them on, you do. So primarily, everything that they sell needs an MPI registration. They're a dealership, just not in an automotive sense, in a power sports sense. So as you go through that, the pictures end on page 13, but I think you get a good feel for exactly what they sell and obviously what they service. So from that aspect, same arguments would apply. Comps 1 through 13 would be the closest to the comparables to the subject property, and they're in at again average of 1785, weighted average of 1811, and median of 1750 for the Regent area. So when we turn over to page 18 is our workup. We see for 50,000 square feet, we're actually putting in nowhere near the comparables. We're actually putting $10.56 in. Again, you're not quite on the strip of Regent. You're off. You're closer to Marion. You're closer to an industrial area, flavor, so to speak, but they still do have significant frontage and exposure. It's just you're more into the industrial area of that location where they are. So with the rent applied from a model perspective, it is more appropriate, but again, higher than what our retail argument is. So on the workup is for 50,074 square feet, we get a PGI of $528,781. Again, our 2% for vacancy gives us effective gross income of $518,205. Our non-recoverable expenses at 3% and our shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of $496,650, and capped at again a little higher than the other ones we were speaking to at 6.65%, and that's in relationship to the location, obviously, and the size and the age, which would warrant a little bit of a higher capitalization rate. Gives us our $7,468,000 rounded. Again, same arguments would apply for the municipal board order and the capitalization rate chart that we've already discussed. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. Mr. Navarro, questions for the assessor?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions for the assessor.
Thank you very much. Ms. Burhan, do you have any questions for the assessor at this moment?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No questions. Thank you.
And the only question I will repeat the one I had from the previous, which is the cap rate has been adjusted accordingly based on location, size, and general difference from some of the other properties that we've seen so far, correct?
It is still modeled. I haven't changed any model parameters on any of the appeals here today, so it is modeled. If I were to change one, I would tell the board and tell the agent as well. But no, it's simply modeled, and again, the major is the location, and the size and the age would warrant an increase. So,
okay, those are my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. I'd love to hear your presentation on this property, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, we're looking at 925 La Jamodier. You can see some overhead pictures on pages 6 and 7, and a description of the property on page 7. There are 2 sections to this building, one built in 84 and one built in 1990. And on pages 11, you can see our rent comparisons. Now, this is where we've deviated from the Regent Avenue locations. So this is the reason for this is that this is from our perspective, more industrial in nature. I believe that's the argument that we would be taking to the board on these types of properties. They differ from the nodes that we looked at for Regent and in the assessor's comparisons from the Polo Park area, Sterling Lion. This is not that. This is a different area. It is essentially an industrial node. And it's also noted that it's reflected in the zoning of the property, which is M2, not commercial. So our comparisons come from the industrial areas. We're trying to keep them in the same marketplace. So most of these are coming from the St. Boniface area. And we've assigned an overall rent of $8.83 per square foot. If you turn to page 14, you can see our allowance, 2%, shortfall 6, non-recoverables 1 and 3, and we've assigned a cap rate of 6.75 to this property. We're asking for 6,171,568 or 6,172,000. The cap rate you can see on page 12. Our range for investment grade B ranges between 650 and 750. We've assigned 675 cap rate to this. And beyond the appendix, you can see the income and expenses supplied by the owner and just some additional photos on page, starting on pages 25. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions, Mr. Paul?
Yes, I do. Can you turn to page 11? I don't have too many questions, but I just want to, there's 50,347 square feet, of which 40,600 is your main floor area. Mezzanine is just a little under 10,000 square feet. So you really have a 1:4 ratio. Would you agree for Mez? And it doesn't really show on your pictures, but you can turn back through mine. They store snowmobiles up there, other sleds. Should the sled speak today? Sleds and snowmobiles up there. There are some side-by-sides up there. They're not light. Usually a Mez has a lesser utility of loading. Given the nature of the property and the use of it, would the mezzanine not have a higher degree of utility than what you typically would see?
I'm not doubting that they're getting some product up there, but from our perspective, it's more of a catwalk type of mezzanine, which I don't think really lends itself to being used like the main floor area. So that is the reason that we've adjusted the value on it. But I don't disagree that they can get product up there. It's just that it's not as functional as the main floor area. As I mentioned, it's more of a catwalk type of mezzanine.
Right, but if you turn to my page 10 or 11, you see they have dual stairways leading up for retail purposes.
Yeah, and I believe they use it as storage for some product in there, and you can probably go up there and view. But no, it's not the same that it wouldn't have the same value as the main floor area from our perspective.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm getting at. Like, obviously, I have no doubt that they're storing oil filters, oil, whatever, all the stuff that goes with the brands.
Yeah.
But up there, as we can see, there also have space for customers to go up and walk through their inventory. So I just felt that at $5, perhaps that wasn't taken into account the use of, or the utility of the full use of the Mez. So with that, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Mr. Carlin, questions at this point?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Verheyen, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess that you've, I believe, answered the question, and there is you're calling it more of a catwalk scenario, but obviously they are doing sales off of that mezzanine. It looks to be fairly substantial in terms of the ability to carry the weight up there, as well as being able to have the public going up there, as well as sales personnel, I'm sure. It just your opinion, you felt that the differentiating rate between main floor and mezzanine was warranted here, yes?
I think from our perspective, most of the viewing would be done on the main floor. I'm not doubting that there may be some stock up there and people can walk around. But I mean, they're paying for most of the rent on the main floor. I don't think they would be paying as much for that second level. That's why we've adjusted it.
Yeah. It almost seems, now, forgive me, I'm looking at the pictures that the assessor has provided in his brief. And it looks like it's kind of a seasonal thing, it looks like. And why I say that is I see quads on the floor, on the main floor, in the pictures on page 11, and see snowmobiles up on the top. I wonder, do they flip those around during the seasons? Does anyone know?
Sure. Yeah, so it would be a seasonal, I mean, this is a seasonal business, right? You're generally not selling as many boats in the winter as you are snowmobiles.
Well, you
Yeah.
never know.
I'll agree with the agent on that.
So you think, do they flip the products up and down kind of thing? Is that, you believe
Well,
that's what happens?
I would guess that there would be less weight involved with watercraft like Sea-Doos and some snowmobiles. Some snowmobiles can actually be quite heavy, but yeah, I believe they can probably flip the stock upwards.
All right, it just interesting to see that. Those are my questions. Thank you both for submissions. No final comments on this, gentlemen, either of you, since this is a little bit different than the others?
No, I think I highlighted it. Obviously, I'll go a little bit of detail. Obviously, they have to have some storage. Most of the view, when you walk through it, is either service at the back or you see the large retail component up front. You need to store your mechanical inventory, if you want to say it like that, like your belts, your oil filters, your replacement parts. They're up there on the catwalk. You can see through some of the pictures, but that catwalk would all be the same, live loading and dead loading all the way throughout the building, I'm sure. And you can see that they do have side by sides up, they have sleds up there. And I have no doubt that they would flip it or have the utility to flip it. So I think there is a higher degree of use than what you would typically see on a mezzanine in your average building kind of thing. So I'll let the board reflect on that.
Fair enough. Mr. Navarro, any final thoughts on this, sir?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and much appreciated from both of you. We will move on to item number 5, which is 1377 Niagara Road. So, Mr. Cole, would you like to walk us through your presentation, sir?
Sure. File number 242572. Roll number is 0609307570. 1377 Niagara Road. 2025 value is for $3,625,000. Was built in 2005. Leasable area is 21,143 square feet. We look over on page 3. It is the former Harley Davidson dealership, or I should say, it is a Harley Davidson dealership. On page 3 shows that it is on Fermor. I guess it's the very first lane that you turn east going on Fermor if you go north. So again, the closest that we have as far as retail component would still be the Region location, but it'd be similar to what the last subject property we discussed. So we move forward on page 4 to 5 and numerous pages after that. they sell Harley Davidsons here. They sell the whole product line. Full stop. If you put a Harley Davidson dealership out in the middle of a field somewhere, Harley Davidson customers are going to find it. They're going to go to it. It's just that kind of covenant on the brand. They're a very strong brand. So this is where they chose to locate. It's in more of an industrial flavored area, so to speak. It is not on a usual where you would see it on a retail location, on a retail strip. So we go through the pages. You see that they carry the entire product line of Harley Davidson bikes, clothing, apparel, and obviously they service them as well. So that ends at page 16. Gives you a good feel for the store and what it's capable of. We see that the wall heights are a little less in some spaces in the area or in the building. Being 13 feet, where usually you have around a 20-foot space, 18, 20-foot space anyways. But that is again on more the retail location, the apparel location where you're selling the goods to the public. So from that, same arguments that we've already heard. Comps are on 1 to 13. Average rent $17.85. Weighted average $18.11. Median at $17.50. And of course, if you want to look citywide, it's there for you as well. We see on page 21, we've applied $12.96 and $10.01 to each of the two areas. One of the areas being your main area at 15,120 square feet. And then we have a storage mezz area as well at $10. So the total PGI that we have is $256,245. Applied to 2% for vacancy gives effective income of $251,120. Non-recoverable expenses at 3% and shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of 241,049 square feet. Capped at 6.65% gives us a value rounded of 3,625,000. So again, same municipal board order that we've already discussed would also apply. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And any questions, Ms. Vernon, at this point?
I do not, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Questions?
No questions either. Thank you.
All right. Just give me a minute. I'm just trying to catch up here.
Well, actually, I do have one.
Sure.
I noticed there is a sale in 2020. Has there been any permits or anything changed
sorry.
on that?
My mistake. Yes, I should have went over that. I apologize. I missed that. Yes, there was a sale in March of 2020. I believe when I looked at the sale, the Harley Davidson dealership went with it. So this sale here is inclusive of just real estate, and then the dealership went with it. So with that, that's how they go, right? There is no tenancy here. There is no rent. It's just simply that the owner owned the dealership and the property chose to sell it as a whole. So
Thank you. No other questions.
thanks for pointing that out. I apologize. I missed that.
Thank you very much. It's good to see that. All right, I think I'm up to speed, and I don't believe I have any further questions for you, Mr. Cole, so I appreciate that. Mr. Navarro, love to hear your presentation, sir.
Absolutely. I believe Mr. Pohl explained the property, some nice pictures too. So I will ask you to turn to page 13 of the brief. And again, as with the previous property, our interpretation is that this is more of an industrial flavored property, even though it's being used for a retail purpose. It is located smack in the middle of an industrial node. So our rents come from the industrial marketplace. And so for the main area, we've assigned a rent of $11.50 and the mezzanine at $5. Combined, that is $9.65. That is a potential of 203,995. You can see on page 16, or sorry, 15, the other parameters that we've used, 2% for vacancy, 6% for shortfall, 1% for non-recoverables, and 2% for other structural, for a net operating income of 191,380 and a capitalization rate of 6.75. We have an end value of 2,835,266 or 2,835,000 rounded. That's it. I'm ready for questions.
Sorry.
Mr. Cole, questions of this?
I just want to confirm, I know it's not your brief, but, and I touched on it in mine. There was a $3.5 million sale in 2020, March 2020. When I reviewed it, it appeared that the going concern went with the real estate, meaning that they paid X amount for the going concern, but that's not inclusive of the real estate. The real estate was exclusive at 3.5 million. I just want to confirm that that did indeed happen, because if it was just the real estate and the going concern didn't go with it, we then have an arm's length tenancy, because obviously the nature would have changed for the real estate, but not the going concern.
Yeah, our interpretation, we did ask this of the owner, was that they purchased the business. So you could call it the going concern. We weren't aware that they had separated out the real estate though. So we haven't confirmed that.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
I guess the question I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Bolden, what was registered to land titles? The number that you showed in your brief, is that just for land and buildings? Is that what was registered?
What I looked at was just for land and buildings. I did not have the going concern value.
Okay,
It wouldn't have shown up.
it wouldn't be, because that's not how they reported, correct?
Correct. And that's why I was getting at, mainly if it was just the real estate that transferred and the owner retained the Harley Davidson dealership, since he no longer owned the land and the real estate, he would become a true tenant, an arm's length tenant. So that was
Right.
moving into that. So,
Well,
bye.
yeah, I mean, one comment that I would make about the going concern is that, I mean, when they're valuing the going concern, what's left over is often the real estate value. They're not necessarily going to the marketplace to do an appraisal on the real estate itself. So that was not confirmed to us by the owner. So even if it was registered as a $3.5 million sale, I think the basis of the sale itself was the going concern. So we did certainly look at the sale itself. So it was a concern for us initially, but we thought that the owner provided an explanation to it. So we didn't look at it as carefully as we may have for other properties.
So, forgive me again, Mr. Navarro, but if in fact the owner registered an amount for the sale of the property, you're saying it's comprehensive, including business value. And I appreciate that comment, because a lot of times that's what happens. You buy the business, you buy the whole, you buy lock, stock and barrel, right?
You buy the real estate, yeah.
Right.
I think the difference is that when you do a going concern value, you look at the business value, you look at the assets that come with the business, and then I guess what's left over is the real estate value.
So do you think that the value of the sale is just the real estate value, sir? Or do you feel that that's a comprehensive number?
I'm not too. I wouldn't bet on it.
Problem we have, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on it, but certainly if the way I look at it, if there is a declaration made that is the real estate value, then that is the real estate value. I don't have that declaration. Certainly, Mr. Pohl would probably have access to it. So if it was a declared value, when they register the sale, not just the sale on title, but when they register the sale, there is that declaration that they have to sign that this value is true, a true representation of the value for the real estate only. So I don't have that at hand.
And I appreciate your comments, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, now I've lost my place actually. Have I asked, my panel members if they have had questions regarding this at this point? No? Okay. Mr. Carlin? Since
No,
you-
I don't think you asked, but no, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Let me jump to you since you jumped first to the mic. Ms. Verhun, do you have any questions of Mr. Navarro?
I do not, thank you.
And I think I've already exhausted what I was gonna ask, so thank you very much, both of you, for your presentations. Unless you, either one wants to make a final summation on that, giving you the opportunity if you so choose.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as what we declared for land titles on the sale. I don't think we need to go any further than that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Navarro,
No,
Fair.
I'm good. Thank you.
thank you very much, appreciate it. That concludes that item on the agenda, so we will move on. And item number 6 is the next property on the docket, gentlemen, and that is 1350 Dougal Road. And Mr. Cole, I'd love to hear your presentation, sir.
File number is 242665. Roll number is 0605019540. Civic address is 1350 Dugald. 2025 assessed value is for $3,967,000. The property was built in approximately 1985 with an addition in 2016. We have 1997 of overall effective age. We have a leasable area of a little over 26,000 square feet. It is owner occupied. If you look on page 2, although it doesn't check the owner occupied, I've looked at this property. It is owner occupied. I've looked at the municipal board that came from this property. It is owner occupied. Although I didn't attach the municipal board here today. We have the same comparable group that we're using, 1 through 13. That is the nearest comparable in a retail market to Dugald. This is in the same vein of where you saw Enns Brothers, and as you continue, kind of the first major road is Dugald. As you go out, there's a line of power sports dealerships located there, and this fits in with that little cluster of power sports dealerships. So again, comps are at the average of $17.85, $18.81 for weighted average, and median of $17.50. Before we get to that, let's go to the pictures just to show, which is on page. Starting on page 29. We had an inspection for the property. I'll just go over it with you. The main building is on the left, showroom is up front, service area is towards the back. The building to the right is also where they service boats and such. There is a bit of cold storage towards the bottom quarter of the building, which isn't heated. The remainder of the building is climate controlled. So I'll get to that in a moment. So again, on page 30, starting on, it is Ron's Marine. They just don't sell marines. If you look at a interim order, they called it a marina. It's not at a municipal board level. Well, I'll just touch base on that. It is not a marina. It is a power sports dealership. There's not a boat launch. I don't sell my bait there. I can't get advice on local fishing. There's nowhere to fish there. It's gravel parking lot out back. It is a power sports dealership. I'm not sure what was conveyed by the assessor, what was conveyed by the agent. But everything that I spoke to the last couple properties is similar here. Most of what they sell is registered by either straight out registered with MPI, or or it's on a trailer registered by MPI. So they sell power sports vehicles, and most of what they sell needs a registration. So as we go through, I believe they're a Brunswick dealership as far as the marine end of it is. They sell Polaris, obviously a major brand, the major brand for dealerships. Or should say off-road. They sell scooters, they sell dirt bikes, they sell sleds, they sell all the gear. And there's a number of pages here that I don't need to necessarily go through all of them. They are for your leisure. So I will let you go through the first number ones. They sell spiders as well, fully registered with, again, MPI. Starting on page 37 is from a prior 2021 inspection. On 38, again, no, that's the branding. Again, I was speaking to their Brunswick boat dealership, which owns Crescent Liner, which owns a number of boats that they sell. Mercury's obviously a power sports as well for the inboard, outboard motors. And of course, Polaris is standalone. I've been here many times as a customer. Everything off-road, seasonal, like we've already discussed. You don't sell too many boats in the winter, and you don't sell too many sleds in the summer. So these places exist to sell both ends of the market for either end of the year that you're looking at. So all the way through here, starting on page 43, you see what they sell. 43, 44 is where you're ending on the showroom, and you get more into the back of the building on page 45 is where they start servicing the products that they sell, where it gets more of the industrial flavor, so to speak, what you see. On page 48 and 49 is that secondary building, which I indicated is climate controlled. You see how they heat it with propane. This is for when they do their servicing of their boats, when they service their other, I guess you can service anything you want in it, but it's set up for obviously boats. You can see the walkways that you bring your boat into, you service it, you move it out of the shop kind of thing. The number of pages that go through to page 53 kind of highlights that more so. You see the ramp set up for that. So from that, page 56 shows a view of that building that we were discussing, how it's about a 1/5 cold storage, the other 4/5 climate controlled, as we just seen and shown. And there's also some on-site boat storage you see on page 57. Most of what you service dealerships do offer, they wrap it and they store it on site. If you have a nice enough boat, if you have one like I got, you don't do that, you do it yourself. But the larger power sports, more valuable vehicles as far as boats is. So they do service, sell, and store. But when your season is over, so to speak. And then the rest of is just your service areas that are in the main building. Leading back, page 72, you get more into your storage areas. Page 75, they do have sea cans on site, or you can see trailers where they just store materials which don't need to be climate controlled. They're just sitting in an outside trailer. So we did have a very good go through this property, and then I'll let you browse through it. The pictures end on page, and I apologize, I put a lot of them, end on page 104. Towards the pictures starting on page 81, get back to the service retail area. I should say retail area where you have your apparel, where you have your goods that you would buy. And then on page on page 94 shows more of the office area. There's an upstairs And it's just your standard office for this type of location. It's not the prettiest kind of office as I would usually be bringing into a hearing when we're discussing office properties, but this is what you would typically see in a power sports dealership. It's not a high-end office by any measure. It's more of a utility end of what you would need to operate the building. As I was indicating, you can call it a mezz if you want or whatever, but there's lunchroom, there's and obviously your sales. So with that, you have a pretty good detailed look. I apologize, that is a lot of pictures, but that's what we had on file from 2021, and I wanted to show you the totality of the two buildings on the site itself. So when we're getting back to the workup starts on page 8. The 17,461 square foot area is the main building, and that's at $11.56. The storage area, both of them are 6,000 square feet and 2,700 square feet. The $9 rate is for the climate controlled, as I discussed, and for the cold storage area, which isn't climate controlled, is $4.49. So that's the differential. So the building that we've shown that was to the right of the site, where they're servicing boats, where they're servicing larger, obviously larger, they can fit larger power sports vehicles in it. They don't have it. They obviously have exhaust fans in there. They obviously have heating in there. I don't believe it's air conditioned. From what I've seen, it was just simply heated in the wintertime. So with propane. So with that, that's the differential between the rates. So for the totality of the 26,161 square feet, we have a PGI of $268,272. Vacancy at 2% gives us effective gross income of $262,907. Our expenses at 3% non-recoverable and shortfall at $6 gives us a net operating income of $251,881, and capped at 6.35% gives the value rounded to $3,967,000. So with that, I am open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Verhun, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No questions here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do have a question regarding, I guess, the picture at page 29 of your brief, Mr. Pohl.
Sure. Okay.
And I'm noting that there's obviously parking for boats, etc. You can see them. You can see the two main buildings, but then if you look at the very bottom edge of that picture, it looks like the property continues, or at least their use of property behind them. And I guess this is to the south, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And so is that also owned by them, I'm assuming?
I want to say yes, but there's some common ownership. And if you look at it from a larger site, we'll speak to another property that'll be coming up at 1330 Dugald. Most of the sites back onto this, and looks like there's common use. So you have trailers that are stored. In this case here, you have a power sports where there's boats being stored. You can see some of them being stored on site here as well, along the east side.
Yeah.
But there's a primary, and part of that will be questions that I have to the panel. There is a primary, the going concern on this site generates the rental that you store your boats, store your trailers, so to speak. You need to pay per month to store. So once they service them, they wrap them, they are stored out on either on this lot minorly or as I indicated, or maybe I didn't indicate well enough, but on the back lot as well.
Okay. I was just curious to see if in fact there was more to the story, and it appears there's a bit more, so maybe Mr. Navarro might be able to shed some additional light to this.
Well, just so we're clear, we're looking at it from a retail perspective. the going concern the going concern as you're looking at it, that would be from a power sports dealership and the
Yep.
generation that you could. We're not taking it from that perspective. We're not doing, whether it be a car dealership, how much the volume of sales that you're looking at, what would a
No.
tenant look like they're gonna pay? That's the going concern operation. We're simply taking it, we don't have that. We're looking at the retail environment and taking economic substitution, pull it back here.
And I do appreciate the additional comment there, Mr. Paul, so thank you very much. At this point, Mr. Navarro, you're up, sir.
Okay, we're looking at 1350 Dugald Road. You can see the overhead pictures on page 6. This is Ron's Marine at 1350 Dugald. And the general area on page 7, which is obviously Dugald Road. This is obviously more industrial in nature, so one of the reasons that we've deviated from using the retail node comparisons is just because of that. So on page 8, you can see the breakdown of the site in terms of when the different areas were built. And I can just ask you to flip to page 15 at this point. We've used an overall rent of 10. So on the previous examples, you saw how I staggered the rents based on the mezzanines. In this case, I haven't done anything like that. And the reason is simply because I was trying to keep the rent overall at a certain rate, given the overall space of 26,000 square feet. This was slightly smaller than some of the properties that we've looked at. So I wanted to keep the size in perspective. So that said, not much of a difference in terms of the NOI between the two sides. It really does come down to a cap rate issue. So we have a potential of 261,610, 2% for vacancy. That gives us an effective market income of 256,378. The expense allowances in total are 10,831 and a net operating income of 245,547. Capitalized at 7%, that gives us a value of 3,507,816 or 3,508 rounded. In the appendix, you can see the income and expenses that were supplied by the owner and some of the details of the property that we get from the city records. That takes us right up to page 25. And then beyond that, and starting on page 26, we get pictures as well. I was in this location myself. I walked through it and I didn't. I suppose I could have taken Mr. Pohl's approach and attached all the photos that we had. I hit some major points and that's about it. I was concerned about the trees in this case. But yes, we went through the entire site and not much in terms of disagreement with Mr. Pohl. I mean, I think he saw what we saw as well, and that would be reflected in the NOI that we came to, which was very close to his. So from our perspective, this one is coming in at again, we're looking at the industrial nature of this property, so we've deviated somewhat from what Mr. Pohl has done, and we've selected a 7% cap rate. You can see the information on page 13 in terms of the cap rates. The way that we've stratified these properties is between A's and B's and non-investment grade properties. We've gone to a 7% cap rate on this one. I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Questions, Mr. Pohl?
Maybe this isn't a fair question, but you feel, given that the property at 925 Lajimodi, we're dealing with 1350 and then 1330 Google, you feel that a greater rent is warranted here than versus my my perspective, a better property at 925 Lashmode. Because you're putting on a $10 rent versus an overall $8.83 rent for the
Right.
my opinion, the two. So what would warrant
So if I'm not mistaken about that, La Jamodier property, it's in the 50,000 square foot range. Yeah, so that effectively would be the reason.
Other than that, can you just confirm, because it shows a bit clearer on your brief, because we will discuss under next property on page 6 of your brief.
6.
Yeah, middle, the site layout.
Mhm.
We see where your icon is, that is the subject property. We see that there is a boats parked directly behind it, majority of them on that small parcel. There is fence lines between the other parcels as well. But is that not on the, how do you phrase this the right way? Going through that parcel, is that
Mhm.
not an open gate in between? If you look
So
straight, if you look
I
straight
mean-
down, it looks right through, and it looks like they all go through.
Yeah,
So
so I would say that there's, you may know that there is common ownership here, right? Yeah.
that's what I'm suspecting. Yes.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, because there is common ownership, whether you park a boat on the parcel subject property or the one right below it, or perhaps you need more room, you can have the flexibility to use another parcel or vice versa with trailers kind of thing. Because either one on the side.
Right. I mean, I do see some boats on, the trailer side sometimes, but predominantly trailers. So yeah, every so often, I believe they probably just need the room and just
Okay.
move some supply over to the property next door. And
Okay, fair enough. That's the only question I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Verhun, any questions at this point?
I do not, thank you.
I think I'm also good. Unless either one wants to make a summation, we can move on to the next property, gentlemen. What do you think?
I don't need, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
we're good.
Awesome. Moving along.
All right.
This
File
is-
number 20, sorry.
Just. My apologies, just give me a moment. So this is item number 7, and this is 1330 Dougal Road, which is obviously next door to what we just heard, correct?
Right.
Go
So-
ahead, oh, my apologies.
No problem. File number 242663, roll number 0605019560, 1330 Dougal. 2025 assessed value is not 303,967,000. It was built in 1995 with an addition put on in 2005. We have a leasable area of approximately 21,574 square feet. This one does have 20-foot walls all the way throughout. It is a Transcona trailer and sales owner occupied property. So we go to, and again, maybe I'm a little less tree friendly today, I apologize. But on page 29 starts the photos. Same idea. There's obviously parking towards the back, storage towards the back. On page 30 shows the frontage on Dougal. I've been a customer here as well. I do have a trailer. Go to these places. So they do sell. In here, they are a few things. They are obviously their main component is trailers or travel trailers, RVs, so to speak. They do sell the Arctic Cat product line. So they do sell some power sports, but not as much. If you look on page 32 and 31, you see that Arctic Cat power sports there. You see that they carry a number of brands of trailers. I'm not going to get into them all, but they are major brands, obviously. On page 36 starts the office area. And again, same as the other property. This is office for these type of properties. It's not a main office building type finished feel to it. It is a utility towards what they sell and service here. So on page 38 is the showroom areas taken from the mezz walkway before it goes down. And you can see the product lines. They sell everything that comes in a trailer, that breaks in a trailer. They sell, and obviously if you wanted to bring your trailer there, they would service it. So whether you're doing do it yourself or any fix yourself, or you get it serviced at the end of the year and store it on their back site, so to speak, you can get them to fix it as well. So moving on to page 4 or 42, that is the service desk that they have for parts. You look on the next page is over. On page 43, you see the bays that they have where they pull in the trailers. Obviously, with a trailer, you need a larger industrial end of it. You need to fit a large trailer through the door. So you're looking at 16-foot doors to get in and service these type of vehicles. So from that, on page 46 shows a bit of the branding that they have up front. I believe they sold motorcycles here at one point as well, and as well as snowmobiles. So with that, again, the majority of what they sell is RV related, and the minor component is power sports. So getting back to the workup, which is on page, I guess we should start with the comps. Same comps as we've already discussed numerous times over. Comps 1 through 13. Again, average, weighted average, and median at 1785, 1881, and 1750 square foot. And then leading to the workup, which is on page 8. For the 21,574 square feet, we have a $12.12 rent attached to it, which produces a PGI of 261,477, 2% vacancy, yields an effective gross income of 256,247, expenses non-recoverable at 3%, shortfall at $6, gives us a net operating income of 245,971, capped at 6.2%, gives us our value rounded at 3,967,000. So with that, I believe we've covered everything. And I've covered everything, and with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions for the assessor?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunt, do you have any questions for the assessor at this point?
Just on the cap rate from the other Dugald address, that's 6.35. Was it just the size that you looked into for the 6.2%?
1 second. The other one was a bit older, and not mistaken. Yeah, the size is a little different, but the other one's starting point was 1985, so it was a 10-year difference. So other than that, they're very similar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
My question's kind of along the same line. So with the property next door, this one seems to have a little premium on the price per square foot. Is that just because of the higher ceilings and?
Well, not just that. The other one next door, one was climate controlled. Okay. And the other one was like they have propane heating and they vent it out. They don't have air conditioning in that building. And then they have the storage area, which is just cold storage to the south of the building to the right, which is just more of a storage for what you need. So that would be the difference in the storage rates there. And then the other one,
but there seems to be a little difference in the square foot, like the square foot rent on kind of the showroom side on these two. I think the previous one was around 11.
Yeah,
11. This is 12.
So we have $11.56 rent for the 17,661, and then we have here $12. So they're 60 or so cents off. But we do have a bit new. The other one's a bit older. This one's a bit newer.
But newer and higher walls and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think my questions are asked and answered at this point. So, it's common ownership with the property next door, correct?
You're asking me?
Yes, sir.
I believe there is, but I can't. Obviously, they're sharing the sites. I can't really get into who owns what kind of thing. You see, well, we have our ownership groups too, so I think that's more better asked towards the agent.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if possible, I actually did have a question to direct to the assessor. I'm wondering if I could actually do that.
Sure, why not?
Absolutely,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. Mr. Pohl, the only I noted some commentary about the climate controls and that type of thing. It's a two-part question. First of
Sure.
all, do you think that the model would be sophisticated enough to actually recognize that?
Yes, we could downgrade the climate control area, and I use climate. It's not climate; it's heated,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can't have, like, usually what you have in places like this, storage areas that nature. You can set a min max for your temperature, meaning people aren't working out of there most of the time. You're just storing stuff. You're not really doing it to a comfortable level. In this case here, it's just heated in the winter. Obviously, they vent the exhaust out, and there's no air conditioning. So
Okay.
we can downgrade that that space to a lesser quality, and that would be more reflective of it. And that's why you see the differential between, even within that building, the cold storage, which doesn't have
Right.
anything other than that, versus
Right.
the. If you want to call it a shop area, you can call it a shop
Okay.
area. I'm fine with that.
So,
They do work there. So
I guess the second part of this would be that, and I don't like to make comparisons from one property to another, but I did note that we have two comparisons that are very similar in size and in terms of 823 Regent Avenue, which is on that node, car dealership, used car dealership. But that said, it's on that Regent Avenue node, similar size, and yet that property has a lower rent than this one, which is probably in not as good an area. So do you have any explanation at what possible reason that could be?
sorry, bear with me. I'm getting back. 823 Regent.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't comment on it other than it does look low at $11.29. We
Okay.
have obviously the shop area, mezzanine area, and showroom area all included.
Could it be that this property has a lot more of the space allocated towards, the repair, that type of thing? And
could be. Obviously, the showroom walls are 26 feet. Like, it's a big showroom.
yeah,
But
I've been in the property myself as well.
I couldn't really comment on that other than that's the model that they put on this property.
Okay.
The years similar. The main building's 1996, 2004 edition. So
Okay. We'll leave it at that. I'm ready to present, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we're looking at 1330 Dugald. Mr. Pohl explained this property to very good detail, with very good detail. So I don't think I need to get into it. I have been in this property myself. If you turn to page, sorry, I believe I left the numbering out of this brief. If you turn to, I believe, page 11, that should be the potential market rent. So we've used a rent of 1025. And if you turn over to one more page, you will see the income approach summary. I believe I'll work out of that page actually. So we have 21,574 square feet in total. We've applied a 1025 rent to this. 221,134 is the potential. 2% vacancy at 216,711. Shortfall 6. That should be 1% under management. I don't know why that worked out that way. And a 7% cap rate. Based on that small change, if you'd like, Mr. Chair, I can work out the math quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Joe, I'll start from the top again, just so we don't lose track here. So we have 221,134 as the potential. 2% vacancy, that brings us down to 216,711. The shortfall is $6. That hasn't changed. That's 2589. What has changed is the management. So that should not be 5%. That should be 1%. And that equals $2,167. Other at 2% doesn't change either. That's 4,334. So the complete allowance is 9,090. Again, that's 9,090. So if we remove that from the effective market income, we are left, we have 207,621. That is the net operating income. 207,621.
Thank you.
And divided by 7%, which is the cap rate, that is 2,966,014. So $2,966,014, rounded to 2,966,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Beyond that, all we have is the income and expenses supplied by the owners, some property details that we've downloaded from the assessment website, and some pictures of my inspection. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, questions at this point?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No, the only question I had was the difference in the expense numbers, but that's been corrected. So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Verhun, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe the only question that I'm going to ask Mr. Navarro is this is common ownership with the property next door, is it not?
That would be correct.
And I'm guessing the property that goes in behind them too, I'm assuming.
The land?
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe so as well.
fair enough. Those are my questions. Thank you very much. Anything in closing on either part there, gentlemen?
Nope.
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you. That concludes item number 7. We will move on. We are at item number 8. And this is C2-1700 Waverly Street. And Mr. Paul, can we have your presentation on this, please?
I'll just touch on this first because file number 244454, which is this one, and file number 244453 are the same subject properties. We had a supplemental released, which obviously accounts for 2024, and then we're also doing the 2025. So I'll go through that now. And I'll try and save myself some talking for the next appeal that we'll hear in a moment.
So in essence, these are, one has been superseded by the other. Is that the idea here, Mr. Paul?
The 2024 is a supplemental, so it overwrites the prior one, the prior year.
The prior one being which file number, sir?
No, these two are live. Both of these are live. What I'm saying is there was an addition put on. There was a.
I see.
We assessed it.
These are what's been done. Okay.
That's why better way of saying it, that's why we're dealing with a 2024 appeal here versus just the 2025. So, and there's no contention on the effective date, so it's just a straight quantum argument. And I'll get to it. So for file number 244454, the roll number is 0306504360. It's for unit C2, 1700 Waverly Street. The 2024 assessed value is for $6,954,000. We see that the actual year built is 2007, with addition being put on in 2018. Let me go straight to that. If we look on page 4, we'll look at the subject property as it sits now and the location that it is in. So it's in Waverly, the Waverly Autumn Wall, between Scurfield and obviously Bishop Grannon and just on Waverly there. So we look on page 6. I'm just giving you exactly what you see. It's a Hyundai dealership. The new addition was obviously put on in the front, new branding. And these are from their Instagram page as well as from file photos that we have. Leading back to starting on page 12 is the shop areas that was also put on. So what we see starting on page 15 is at the top, what was there? And as you can see from the file, they put on an addition, like I said, a showroom in the front and service area towards the back. And on page 16 shows again when it was completed. So on page 17 is the permit that was associated with it. It's for $2.5 million. It indicates exactly what I was indicating, the two additions that were put on. And then just more construction of the property on page 18 and 19, as you can see the before and after. So getting back to the comparables, I should say, getting back to the location where it is. We have, starting on page 20 and going to page 23 are the same comparables that we were discussing. Again, for the overall, we have almost 1.9 million square feet of inventory. For this year, we have 80 comparables, and we have $18.78, $18.40, and $18.25 for the total weighted. And for the actual group, we would be using the Pembina Grant location. I feel is the most comparable. We do have 300 Newmark, which is again leased up in 2020. So that is a fitness center. That's Good Life, but that's the most closest to it. I don't believe going further into Kenniston Commons would be it's further down, and I think that's going too far as the quality of what you'd expect from a tenant, I should say the income that you'd expect from a tenant as an owner. So I think the best comparable group is on page 21 from 27 to 41. And we can see that they're, again, $19.60 for an average rate, rent rate, a weighted average at $19.27 and a median $18.25. So from that, we can look. And again, if we looked over on page 22, we see that the rents are higher. I don't think that's exactly a comparable one. That's kind of for the dealerships located in that area, the new dealerships there. So on page 24 is the workup. So for 30,994 square feet, we have $15.35, which produces a PGI of $475,758, with a 2% for vacancy, gives us an effective gross income of $466,243. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $6, gives us a net operating income of $448,537, and capped at 6.45%. Yields are value rounded at $6,954,000. Again, same municipal board order would apply that we've already discussed. And with that, I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, do you have questions for the assessor?
I mean, I guess the obvious one is the cap rate. We are looking at a different cycle, but I guess we can assume that transfers to the current one as well. Actually, maybe I'll handle it in the next one. Yeah, I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Questions, Ms. Verheyen?
I do not, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe I have any questions, so Mr. Navarro, you have your presentation for this?
Of course. So this is unit C2 1700. Again, this is the Hyundai dealership. It is on the very east side of the auto mall. And again, most people who have been through here recognize that there's two parts to this, west side and east side. So this dealership was expanded, as Mr. Pohl noted. There was a supplementary issued, so we are looking at a new overall size. So we're looking at 30,994 square feet. We've assigned a rent of $14 to it. I would disregard that comment. That's probably existing from another location. And in terms of the cap rates, again, this is retail oriented. So from this perspective, we are looking at it from the retail perspective as well. Although one could say that there is, I believe, industrial zoning on this one. That said, the flavor is more retail from our perspective as well. So again, $14 rent, that is a potential of $433,916, 2% for vacancy, and a complete allowance of 16,476. Net operating income 408, 761, and we've applied a 6.5% cap rate to this. Again, very similar to what Mr. Pohl has indicated as well. 6,288,635 or 6,289 rounded. In the appendix, we're looking at the income and expenses that have been submitted. Obviously, disregard the rental income. This is not a rental property. That's just a book rent. And yeah, I'm open for questions now.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Questions?
No, other than just confirming that it is a book rent and it is highlighted, they noted on your income and expense questionnaire, so we're in green on that.
Very well. Mr. Carlin, questions at this point?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rahan, do you have questions?
I do not, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think I'm good also. Any final thoughts on this, gentleman, or should we just move on to the next one?
I think we could just move on to the next one if that's okay.
Yep, that's good.
Excellent. All right. We've made ourselves now arrive at C2, 1700 Waverly Street. This is the 2025 roll year. And item 9.
Chair.
Yes.
Can I just go on?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. You're fine.
Cheers.
Go ahead, Mr. Pohl. I would like to hear your presentation, please.
Sure. I'll be fairly quick because we ran over the bulk of it last appeal. File numbers 24, 44, 54. The assessed value for, or I should say, same roll number, same address. The assessed 2025 value is for $7,063,000. Exactly what we stated before as far as for the description of the subject property, so we don't need to go into that.
Sorry, Mr. Assessor, I hate to be redundant, but can you read the roll number in again just for this one as well?
Okay, sorry, I thought it, oh, sure. It's roll number 0306504630, and it's unit C2. 0306504630.
Perfect, thank you.
And that is again, unit number C2 for 1700 Waverly, the same roll number, same property address as we just dealt with in the appeal prior. So this is for the 2025. Yeah, this is the 2025. So for the 2025 assessed value, we have $7,063,000. As I was getting to, given that we've already discussed it at length in the last appeal, same property description applies to the subject property. And the same comparable group that we've already discussed on page 19, moving forward to page 22 applies. What we have on the workup for 2000 or for the page 23 is a rent of $14.51 applied to the 30,994 square feet, which gives us a PGI of $449,723. And we have a vacancy of 2%, which yields an effective gross income of $440,729. Expenses at 3%, shortfall at $6, gives us a net operating income of $423,788. Capped at 6%, yields the $7,063,000 rounded. And again, same capitalization rate chart that we've discussed is found on page 25, as well as the municipal order that applies that we're using after that. So with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, questions, please.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the most obvious one would be the rent's fallen by 84 cents.
Yep.
Any explanations?
Other than that, it was a modeled rent. And the comparables that I've derived are independent from the model. It is slightly down.
Hypothetically, if the model is extracting from retail, could that be just a reflection of what's happening in the retail marketplace?
I really can't comment on what parcels or what properties they're pulling it from.
Okay.
I'm looking at it from an independent look at where I feel it should go. And obviously that's retail, so.
Okay. That is my question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro. Questions, Ms. Verhun?
None, thanks.
Mr. Carlin, questions?
None, thank you.
Thank you much, both. And I don't believe I have any questions either. Mr. Navarro, can we have your presentation on this 2025 year appeal?
Absolutely. I'll ask you to turn to page 14 because I don't think I need to get into the background on this property already. Nothing's changed in terms of the size from the previous one that we looked at, 30,994 square feet. We've increased the rent to $15 per square foot. That's taken us to $464,910. Vacancy allowance of 2%, giving us an effective market income of $455,612. Shortfall of $6, 1% for management or other. Management non-recoverable expenses. Other is 2%. So that total allowance is $17,388. And our net operating income is $438,224. We've applied a 6.5% cap rate to it. That's value. That produces a value of $6,741,910 or $6,742,000 rounded. The 6.5% cap rate would be reflected in the retail study that we did, and the chart you can find on page 13. Basically, it's saying that the retail sector didn't really change too much from one cycle to the other, so that would be why the cap rate didn't change from the previous one that we looked at. In terms of the income expenses, you can see them in the appendix. I don't really think they're concerned because this is an owner-occupied location. Yep, that's it. I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cole, do you have questions for Mr. Navarro?
Not really, other than the rent. I just want to confirm. We seem to be, you're a little greater than what we are at. You're at $15, we're at $14.51.
Yeah, I mean, we went up $1 per square foot from last cycle. We went from 14 to 15, so that's
all right. That's the only question I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin. Questions at this point?
Nope, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Verhun, do you have any questions at this point?
No, I don't, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do not have any questions further, so gentlemen, I thank you both for your submissions this afternoon and your patience in getting through this. We've done fairly well, it looks like. So with that, we have heard all items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much both, and you'll be hearing from the board in due course.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Yep. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.